Adventures of Batman with Robin, Boy Wonder. Batman and Robin, dynamic duo against crime and corruption, whose real identities as millionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne and his young ward Dick Grayson are known only to Alfred, the faithful butler. Ever alert, they respond swiftly to a signal from the police, and moments later, from the secret Batcave deep beneath Wayne Manor, they roar out to protect life, limb, and property as Batman and Robin, Cape Crime Fighters. Batman and Robin, scourge of Gotham City's kooky criminals. The Joker, clown prince of crime. The Penguin, pudgy purveyor of perfidy. And the cool, cruel Mr. Freeze. Watch out, villains. Here come Batman and Robin.
Welcome back, citizens, to an all-new episode of the Batcave podcast. It's your old bat chum, John Estrew here, and, you know, we're actually coming to the end of our look here at the Batman Filmation 1968 series. This is the first of the last 4 episodes, and as we've seen from the very beginning when we began this journey, I am joined here in the Batcave by the man himself from 13thdimension.com, Mr. Dan Greenfield. Hey, Dan.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to this. Even though I'm a little sad we're getting into the end, it's looking like, I'm fingers crossed, that we're ending on high notes.
I think the series got better as it went along. It certainly feels like there's more of a consistency, and I'm not sure if it's, again, early on, one of the things that we said that was really happening a lot were, you know, a heavy reliance on the big 4 villains. Big
right.
5 is when it comes to Filmation, when you talk about Mr. Freeze. And, of course, we're going to be talking about Mr. Freeze in this episode and in the next one. But the creators seem to have, it feels to me anyway, that they sort of kind of got their footing in terms of how they wanted to tell their stories, and I feel like the storytelling got tighter as the series went on.
Yeah.
A little bit funnier as the series got on. You know, a little bit more sly, I would say. And there were a lot of villain team ups, and things were starting to feel a little bit formulaic. But in the episodes that we're talking about today and in our next episode, I really think that there was a lot of, I wouldn't say muscle flexing necessarily, but the creators seemed to be, they seemed to be more comfortable in doing things beyond what they were doing in the earlier episodes.
They seem to be more comfortable doing that in terms of storytelling, and I would even say in terms of the animation.
Yes. Yeah, the animation seems like it got better too.
It did.
It feels that way. I mean, I don't know if you could do a frame-by-frame, analysis. And again, the thing about Filmation animation is that it will always be lovably schlocky.
Yes,
is what I like to say, and it still certainly is. But there seem to be little scenes that like kind of pop up and they kind of make you cock your head and go, "Oh, that looked really good," or that. And you know how we always talk about the matte paintings. Some of that stuff really improved as things went along. Also. These have been, and the one thing about these episodes too is that I don't remember a lot. Like we're going to talk about the Christmas episode. I don't think I ever saw that episode before, and I know I've had all of these episodes on both disc and available for download for years now. But I guess I never got around to watching them, or I never bothered, or whatever. But the beauty of some of these episodes is that they feel really fresh, at least for me.
There's something about the Christmas episode, and we'll get into it when we talk about it, in terms of it being a special, and we'll get into that. Let's talk here first about the two-parter. It's called A Perfidious Pieman is Simon, and I had to say that a couple of times because perfidious is not a word I usually use.
No, not in everyday conversation,
No. Written by Oscar Bensall. We start out with a very short opening here.
At the Gotham International Air Terminal, the dynamic duo escort an armored truck to a security building where 4 million Turkish coins are deposited prior to shipment back to Turkey.
Safely inside. We can leave now.
Inside, a secretary signs a receipt for the Turkish piasters. But wait, don't we know this young lady? Of course, she's none other than Simon's beautiful accomplice.
Charlotte Roos. The shipment arrived. Simon and I have the combination to the vault. Hurry.
here's that confidence too. Let's bring back our villain we created, and not only that, let's bring back all the characters that are surrounded with him. Cookie is there, Strudel, and them all. Yeah, the whichever one it is, remember we talked about last time, had that really funny, high, squeaky voice. Mm-hmm. They didn't use that this time, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, they basically said, okay, let's bring these guys back. Let's do our own thing. I kind of think of, especially after having seen both episodes, I sort of see Simon the Pieman is the King Tut of the Filmation universe. He's this villain that they made up out of whole cloth. And Filmation didn't go on as long as Batman 66 did. But they went back to him because they knew that they had something. They knew that this guy had storytelling potential and the characters that they surrounded him with. And in some ways, this episode is better than the first episode, which was really good. And I was annoyed by Simon the Pieman as a kid in the same way that I was annoyed by King Tut. I was like, oh, bring me the Joker, bring me the Penguin. But it's funny because I see this stuff now and I'm like, this is great. Yeah. This is so much fun. Yeah. And it's a character that was certainly worthy of being on the Batman 66 show. If they had thought of it, a villain with this kind of gimmick definitely would have worked. I mean, we saw that in the Riddler episode where he did the baking thing with the pie throwing and all of that. If they'd turned a whole villain into that, it would have been a lot of fun. But this is a really good episode. It is. And, you mentioned again, like the things they talk about, like the matte painting. Right. As the Batmobile is leading the truck or following the truck to where they're going to store the coins and such, they have in the foreground this jet, and it's just beautifully rendered. Yeah. And there was that little part of me looking at it that thought, are we going to see maybe a cameo by Hal Jordan? I don't know why.
If only, man. If only. Yeah. That's one of the things that I was always surprised they never really did, is that they didn't have crossovers. I mean, they had they had the Justice League and they had the Teen Titans cartoons, which I, by the way, could go on for hours about. And it's something that I will be writing about at 13th Dimension. I've touched on those other cartoons before, but I at some point do plan on doing a deep dive on each of those 3-part series that they had on all those individual, quote unquote guest stars. But it really is amazing to me that they never did a Batman and Robin team up with Aquaman, or Batman and Robin never team up with Superman, let alone, Green Lantern and the Flash or any of the others, because how much fun would that be in this Filmation universe? Would have been great.
Who knows? Maybe if they had gone on for further seasons, they might have eventually started doing something like that.
Well, think about it. Hanna-Barbera kind of figured it out, and they said, well, why don't we put them all together all the time and call them the Super Friends?
Right.
So they figured it out, and unfortunately Filmation never did.
Yeah. And of course, being a typical, and again, here's the continuity, being a typical Simon the Pieman episode, we cut to Barbara Gordon, who at the request of the mayor has gone to inspect Mother Goose's pastry park for kiddies.
Yes. Yeah, I love Barbara Gordon, a librarian who's the daughter of the police commissioner, is chosen to do this. It's like, okay, all right, sure, Filmation logic, here we go.
Yeah, there you go, Filmation logic, yeah.
Yes.
But
I know what you're setting up here.
Because come on, and I did ask this after the first one, was this going to be something? And there's Simon in drag as Mother Goose.
Yes.
Delightful, Mother Goose. What's that?
Our refreshment stand. The Pat Cake Baker's house. Come, I'll show you the kitchen.
Oh, no! Mother Goose, those pastry chefs are criminals.
You don't say.
Yes, they work for Simon the Pieman.
Simon says tie her up. Commissioner Gordon won't come near us while we're holding his daughter. Cookie, Simon says you stay here and guard her while we perform Operation Turkish Delight. Come, let's go. Come back, you crumb buns. I didn't say Simon says. Now Simon says to the bakery truck.
Again, it's a different character this time, but the guy can't stay out of dresses, and it's hysterical. It's like something out of Monty Python, and it's when I was waiting for it too, because I remember the last time we talked about it, because I remember this episode in certain respects more than the first episode. And when we get to why, I'll point it out. But I'm watching it the other night and getting ready for this and I'm like, is he going to be in drag again? Is he going to be? And sure enough, there it was, and it's great. It's clearly the writers and the artists are having a good time with this because it's so creepy too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the whole thing has a certain creepy vibe throughout the whole thing.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can only imagine what this is the kind of thing like in the comics. I think that like Norm Brayfogle and Alan Grant and those guys who were doing Batman in the late, in the 90s, would have had a field day with a character like Simon the Pieman. Like the ventriloquist and Simon the Pieman. I could see that in my head, how great those comic books would be.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. That was my favorite time for Batman was their run.
For a lot of people, it is, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite, but I enjoyed it, and because they not to get too far off point is that they were intent on creating new villains that were wacky but also could work in the modern context of Batman. They did a really good job of that, and a lot of those characters have fallen by the wayside and have never really been revived. But Simon the Pieman, I easily could see fitting into that. They could make him really weird and creepy and sinister, so it would appeal to modern readers, but it also has a kitsch value that speaks to, that universal, appeal that superheroes and Batman in particular have.
Yeah. Now, as Simon starts his Turkish delight plan, and again, there we go, continuing, he names his plans after desserts.
Yeah, they were committed to the gag. They knew they had something here, and they went with it.
Mm-hmm. And right down to the whole, I didn't say Simon says.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're mixing all sorts of stuff here. They got the pastry thing going on. They got the nursery rhyme thing going on here, and they got the Simon Says thing going on. They definitely they're working on 3 different tracks of gimmickry here.
Mm-hmm. Right. So Simon leaves with some of his men, leaving one guy behind to guard Barbara. She escapes by tipping a pie at her guard and getting a chance to cut her bonds. So she rushes off to change to Batgirl and get her Batgirl cycle to follow after Simon's truck.
Right. Yeah. She gets captured a lot, doesn't she?
She does. I mean, because no sooner does she catch up with the truck and she's captured again because he takes out the cycle with his whipped cream.
I know. Oh, my God. My son and I were watching the episode and we just kind of looked at each other and shook our heads. We're like, oh, wow. Okay. But she's quickly captured once again. She doesn't get very far.
No. Now, Batman and Robin are called in to come look for Barbara because she hasn't called in a while. Gordon is worried, which is a nice little tip to the 3rd season when Gordon was always worried about Barbara and then she just suddenly appear.
Right. Yeah. Hi, Daddy.
Hi, Daddy. Yeah.
She comes walking in. Oh, Barbara, where have you been? Oh, well, I had to look at that. I had to go look for that missing portfolio, Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad everything is okay with you. Don't worry about me, Daddy. Yeah.
You've only been gone 48 hours, so.
Right, exactly. Yep.
I know the Gotham stacks are large, so,
Yes, they are. Yes. Those rare folios especially.
Yes, the rare folio. Yeah. Now Simon makes off with the $4 million. Now here's one thing: Ted Knight refers to them as piasters. I went looking high and low for piasters. Couldn't find anything. Looked up Turkish coins. What the hell is a piaster?
I don't know. I'm sure it's something. I mean, I'm surprised that you can't. I wonder if we're spelling it right. What
that's a possibility. That's a possibility.
Piaster. Let's see.
I mean, I was doing literally P-I-E. Maybe it's another spelling of pie. Or for that matter, asters. The only thing I could find close to it was asters, which are bouquets of flowers.
Well, for any of your listeners, if they can figure it out and tell us, we'll send them absolutely nothing, but we will send our heartfelt thanks.
We can't send a no prize because that's copyrighted.
Yeah, right. It's Marvel. We can't do a no prize, but we can give you a big metaphorical thumbs up.
There you go.
Somebody clue us in.
Now, Batgirl is placed in the tower of the castle at the park. Batman and Robin arrive and meet with Mother Goose and have no luck getting any information about Barbara from her. But she does ask the two to pose for a picture for the kids. And I swear, I thought maybe she was going to put them on top of a cake.
Yeah, right. Seriously. Yeah.
But she puts them between two wax figures who are actually two of her men, and they recognize them. And yet, Robin doesn't recognize Mother Goose in drag.
No. Even though he / I guess she, is looks exactly the same,
right,
as she did in the last episode.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right.
And in fact, Robin's even stunned, like, "Oh my gosh, that's Simon the Pieman!" And as a woman, it's like, dude,
right.
you've been through this before.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We've seen this. We've seen this already.
Yep.
If you'll stand in front of those wax figures, I'll snap the picture.
Watch it, Robin. Simon's men. I dig.
Watch the birdie. 1, 2, 3.
So you want to play pat a cake, eh, Baker Man?
How's that for upside down cake, pie face? Holy switcheroo! She's the Pie Man!
Batman! Robin! Help!
It's Batgirl.
In all that, Batman takes a hook, and he's able to hurl it to Batgirl.
Now aim it at the castle window.
At the top of the tower, so she can escape. And he's holding the rope taut so she can climb down.
Careful, Batgirl. There are sharks in the moat. Simon says, attack!
Here comes the baker's dozen!
But he has to let go of the rope as more of Simon's men move in to attack. This whole fight scene has some great images that I'm going to capture and put it with the show notes and stuff of the two fighting, and it's just some of the posing is just really well done.
Try a little slow motion potion. Take them into the castle.
We haven't really talked about it, but they do choreograph their fights pretty well in these episodes.
Yes.
I always like, for example, when they punch the camera. When the fist comes flying right at you. Right. And they do. The animation itself can be pretty wonky at times, but the actual choreography and staging of the fights, it's pretty good.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. But what stands out to me is also just that some of the images, because a lot of times with the fights, like you say, yes, we love the punch, but it's kind of stock after a while, you know. But there's some really great original images here that, like, when you freeze them, it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Simon manages to capture them, though, using something he calls a slow motion potion.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. He's got everything.
Yeah. So they're taken away as Batgirl now hangs from the side of the castle near a moat with crocodiles.
Yeah, no, sharks.
Was it sharks?
Sharks. Yeah, it was sharks.
Okay.
Which I didn't understand how they had sharks in a moat.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, I'm like, how does that work? They're not an open sea. It's not an ocean here. How did they get sharks in the moat? But I was like, all right, let's not think about this too hard.
Right.
But I couldn't help but notice that. I was like, okay, it's a nice sight gag or it's a nice visual. But I was thinking, how does that work? But, I'm sure Simon the Pieman found a way.
What's funny is that this, just like the last one, had Batgirl, and they both have them set up. Oh, wait a minute. Did the last one have Batgirl? I forget.
Yeah.
But they did, right. Yes, they did. No, I remember, because the whole thing about how she likes chocolate, but she didn't want to die that way or something.
Oh, yeah, the whole thing with the melting in the butter and the whole bit. Yeah. Batgirl was very much part of it.
Because here we come to the end of part one, and we're set up once again, just like we were in the last one, with some awesome death traps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, explain them, describe them.
Yeah, so you've got Robin being placed on this spinning wheel, and he's kind of got to keep hopping over these candles that are attached to the wheel, and attached to his legs, he's got sticks of dynamite. So, of course, he doesn't want the candle's heat to touch the dynamite.
Jack, be nimble. Jack, be quick.
Yes.
When I was saying before about there was a part that was memorable to me, this is one of those things that I've said this before where I didn't necessarily remember. I remember watching Filmation as a kid more as an experience than individual episodes. But I would have certain images that I would remember for years. This image of Robin jumping over the candles on that wheel stayed with me forever. I remembered it from when I was a kid. It was always one of those things that I thought of when I thought of as from Filmation Batman. I couldn't tell you why, but it's a really, really good trap because it looks – anytime the traps actually not look dangerous because they always look ridiculous, in a good way, in the best possible way. In fact, for some time it's a story I've wanted to do for a long time that I haven't, and I will do it, is the 13 best bat traps from the 66 TV show. This for Filmation is one of those. It's a good one. It looks exhausting. It looks difficult. It looks dangerous, and it's visually appealing. It's really well animated. The way that he jumps over each one, it's effective. And I guess that maybe is why it stayed with me in my mind for the last 45, 46 years or whatever it's been since I first saw these cartoons. But it's really cool.
See, now, it's funny you say that. I mean, it is cool. But to me, the one that stood out more was the Batman one because he's suspended over a vat of what I guess is like acid or something.
Right.
But
yeah.
he's hanging on to the clapper of a bell. And the bell begins to chime. So between him having to switch hands on the clapper so he doesn't get his hands crushed, and then also the sound of the bell driving him crazy, he's kept pretty busy. And it's amazing that he's able to think about Batgirl at all as he watches her being put in a huge pumpkin that they're going to throw down the Jack and Jill well.
Right, but the only thing about that is that when he's up in the bell and I see the rope that rings the bell just right over there, you'd think that he would have thought a lot more quick. I mean, ultimately, that's how he gets out of it.
Right.
Spoiler alert. But I would have thought that he would have thought more quickly to jump onto that rope to begin with. But again, I don't want to overthink these things. The thing I like about it is, and you're right, it is like the last time, is that they're all in their own traps. They're all in their own peril. They have to get out of it. They have to help each other out of it. And I just think it's really, really cool. I know this is going to sound funny to say, but the creators are putting on a show. They're not just going through the motions. They really thought about what they wanted to do with these guys. And I know that they probably thought it up in 10 minutes because they're sitting there, chomping on their cigars. We're going to put Batman in a thing and a Robin in another thing and Batgirl in another thing, and then they'll get out of it. But from the way it comes out, it works really, really well. It's a fun visual, and I just dig it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we come then to the end of part one.
Those perfidious pirates! If only I could...
If only you could help her, Batman. But you can't. Nor can you help the boy wonder, who is tiring fast. Who is there now to save the courageous crime crusaders? Can it be that the dynamic duo will finally be done in? Stay tuned for the thrilling conclusion of this Bat Tale coming up next.
It's the Action Kids. What in the world are they up to now?
Let's get right down to business.
Business? What business?
Fun business!
The Fun Pack Carry-All Action Playset by Marx. Look, this opens up the wild action world of Fort Apache. With Indians, cavalrymen, shell-shooting cannons. And here are the fighting knights, with a real drawbridge, knights, Vikings, and rock-throwing catapults. Here's the boot camp, with 10 Jeep bullet-shooting machine guns and 80 soldiers. Or land a helicopter at Cape Kennedy. Fire the rockets, back the space missile into the launching pad, and start the countdown. It's off into space. Zoom! Get Fort Apache, get the Fighting Knights, get the Boot Camp, get Cape Kennedy. Get all four, and carry your own world of action wherever you go. The Rugged Steel Carry-All Action Playsets by Marx.
It's Christmas Eve, Mr. Scrooge. I'm going home to my family now. Merry Christmas.
Christmas? Bah, humbug. All Christmas means to me is a nasty old cold.
You should take NyQuil, sir.
NyQuil? What's NyQuil?
Nighttime cold medicine from Vicks. Got to go now.
NyQuil? Yes, Mr. Scrooge. NyQuil relieves sniffles, sneezes, stuffy nose, scratchy throat, coughs and aches and pains. NyQuil relieves your major cold symptoms for hours, so it helps you get the rest you need.
Merry
Merry Christmas.
It's Mr. Scrooge.
And he's happy. They said you had a cold, sir.
Oh, I feel much better. I took NyQuil last night.
Merry Christmas, sir.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you, Bob Cratchit, and all your wonderful family.
Merry Christmas to one and all.
Vicks NyQuil, the one thing to take for your cold.
Sealed in a pumpkin shell, Batgirl is being carried up the hill by the Pieman's pythons. Meanwhile, in the King Cole Castle, Robin is bobbing over lighted candles to keep the dynamite sticks from touching the flames. And Batman, the only person who can save them, is clinging to a bell clapper to keep from falling into a pot of peas porridge hot.
Now, when we open with part 2, something I caught really quick, we got a little new addition to the Simon the Pieman mythos, is that his goons are called his pythons. You like that?
His pythons. Yeah, his mythos. Yes, the Simon the Pieman mythos.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah.
Well, because you know what? It makes him come across as a more well-rounded, fleshed-out character that you could be interested in seeing instead of just being a gimmick like a lot of these cartoon shows we grew up with as kids. You know, whether it was Hong Kong Phooey or something. It was just these characters they sketched quickly. It really seemed. I know you say 10 minutes and stuff, and I'm not saying they went into deep thought with Simon the Pieman, but
yeah, I don't think there's a Bible of backstory somewhere on Simon the Pieman.
but still, you know, when I think about how, you know, and we've talked about this before, there are certain episodes with certain villains where you're like going, that would have been better suited as a so-and-so story. Simon, I mean, it's only been 2 episodes, but you know, his themes, his motifs, everything is consistent. And you're right. You could easily see this guy, you know, during the Breyfogle era.
Oh, definitely.
You know, you could see this guy even today. Like, I would have loved to have seen him, and I think he made a cameo, but I would love to see him in a full episode of Brave and the Bold.
Right. It would have been, he did make a cameo. I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he it would be. You're absolutely right. They definitely, in the right circumstances, he could definitely, you know, make a play. I don't think he necessarily would work in the comics now.
No.
But it would be fun to see, you know, even in the Batman 66 comics, it would have been fun to see, you know, him show up there as a villain for those. You know, everything nothing is simple, and rights issues and blah blah blah, which is probably why we've never seen him. I can't imagine that there hasn't been a comic book writer in the last 50 years who hasn't thought, hey, let's do Simon the Pieman. That would be hysterical, but then couldn't for whatever reason. That wouldn't surprise me in the least. But yeah, you definitely see where the idea would have translated not only into the comics in certain respects, but also, as we've been saying, he would have been great on the 66 TV show. Would have been perfect.
Yeah. Well, James Tucker, we're making a personal plea. If there's any possible way in the near future, you can do this. And by the way, if you need a voice actor, Dan does a really good Simon the Pieman.
A little joke. That's my audition, James.
There you go. So like you said, Dan. So like you said, Dan, Batman jumps to the nearby bell rope and frees Robin, and then they go to rescue Batgirl. Now, Batgirl is
looks
more
cool too.
It does. No, absolutely. Batgirl is more rescued by the fact that the pythons drop the pumpkin in panic. So
she goes rolling down the hill.
So they manage to snag her with a net they stretch out across and hold from both ends. So while they're rescuing her, Simon and the others get in and get this. His flying saucer pie. I mean, that's the best way I could describe it. That's what Robin describes it. And they take off.
They call it a sky pie. And I was like, what? Yeah, I'm like, a sky pie? That's awesome.
Okay, I missed it. Because I know, awesome. I know that Robin was describing it as like a saucer, but all right.
Well, that's what it is. It's a flying saucer shaped like a big pie.
Yeah, the sky pie. I like that, yeah. Now, this is, though, something I didn't get. You would think the duo were going to go follow them. You see them running to the Batmobile and stuff, and they go, but no. They say, we're going to go back to the Batcave and have the Batcomputer figure out what Simon's going to do next. And Batgirl, who's told to stay out of trouble, decides to try to follow them.
Well, that's Filmation logic. When they need to extend, particularly in their two-parters, they frequently are in situations. They always have to lose the villain. They have to have the encounter because they have to have the conflict and the drama, but they need to keep it going. Mm-hmm. So they usually come up with some, lame excuse for them not to be able to follow or some reason for it. Usually that trope is someone is injured. So they have to stay back for someone who's injured, or they have to help, save the crowd or do whatever. So they can't follow the villain and do what they need to do. But on Filmation, the tendency is once he gets out of their visual range or a little too far away, they're like, well, we better go back to the Batcave and have the Batcomputer figure it out for us, or we better go back and report to the commissioner. And it's storytelling shorthand, and it's not really that effective for adults. For kids, I'm sure they don't even think about it.
I mean, maybe it was an opportunity to just show the Batcave, because the scene then that follows, nothing basically happens.
Yeah, I just think they're killing time. I think they're padding it. I think that's all that it is.
Right. Yeah. The pie lands at the Piezoelectric Company, and Batgirl finds them there.
Yes, the Piezoelectric Company.
Yes. Batgirl has a very unique way of climbing walls in this episode.
Yes. Strange. Yeah. Hard to describe, but yes, it is weird.
Well, she looks almost like Spider-Man.
Yeah. I noticed that also.
Yeah. But what's cool is she gets there, and Cookie and Strudel try to capture her. She takes out her compact, and I guess this is like some really dense powder, because she blows the compact's powder at them.
It is so wrong. It is so wrong. And of course, it reminds you of that issue of Detective Comics that came out right around this time. Batgirl had only been around for a little while, and they had that issue early on. Batgirl's costume cut-ups, and the whole story is surrounding the idea that Batgirl can only get the villains. She plays up all of her femininity, and so while they're fighting, she's doing her makeup, and then she's got to run in her bat tights, and she's looking at her run, and her legs distract the villain, so Batman and Robin can beat them up. It's one of the it's probably the most retrograde comic book that DC put out in the 60s, at least in terms of its like big titles like Batman Detective or whatever. I mean, all of Lois Lane during that period was like mind-blowing in its handling of women. But yeah, this is like right out of that Batgirl goes to her compact to fight crime. It's like, oh, come on, guys. But this was 1968.
Right. And then she uses the compact, which I guess is big enough, to place on a spotlight that acts as a bat signal.
It's just. It's like I'm just sitting there shaking my head. I'm shaking my head talking about it.
But it works because Batman and Robin in the Batcopter see it and head towards the electric company.
Right.
Simon manages to capture her, but not before she tries to trick the goons.
Take her away, boys.
Wait! He didn't say Simon says.
She's right. Simon says. Take her downstairs.
And I was like thinking, God, that should have worked.
Right.
That should have worked.
It is funny.
But no, he just, carts her off. They now spot the pie saucer, the sky pie, on the water, and it's acting as a boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this vehicle. This is a good. I don't know if it would make for a good action figure. Vehicle. Like I'm always saying, I would love to have a collection of these vehicles. It's good. I like it. It's a good development in the Simon the Pieman mythos, as you would put it.
Right. They lower themselves down into the pie, and it turns out it's a trap. Simon isn't even in there. He submerges the pie and sends it towards a barrier reef.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
The two escape via torpedo tubes. In the so this thing's like really well equipped. It's even got torpedo tubes.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And are met by Alfred in the Batboat.
Good old Alfred always shows up when he's needed.
Exactly. Yeah. Meanwhile, we cut to Simon back in the electric company. He's got Batgirl on this table, and he's having this weight that they use, I guess, to crush diamonds or whatever, and it's going to crush her.
Right. Yeah. Again, Batgirl in peril.
Yes, Batgirl in peril. The trap is stopped, though, when Batman literally pulls a giant plug.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's they. I mean, that is one of the things that I do love about this show is that it plays to those classic Batman, oversized this, that, and the other thing. But you would think that it wouldn't require a gigantic plug to do this machinery. A little plug would have done, or some kind of lever would have done to shut off the power. But I just like the idea that the visual of Batman taking this giant plug out of the wall. It's just, it doesn't have to be that way, but it is because it's Batman.
Yeah, yeah. So while they're dealing with getting Batgirl free, Simon makes his escape. He plans to swing from a high-voltage wire, but there's no voltage because Batman pulled the plug. So they start making their way across, but Batgirl plugs it back in.
Right, yeah.
There's something sadistic about Batgirl.
I wouldn't go that. Not like Catwoman. Catwoman is definitely sadistic on this show, but
I mean in general. Think about Louis the Lilac when they're like, no, don't spray him with that thing. He'll turn to mold or something. And she's always got this grin on her
Gleeful.
face.
Yeah, she's really happy about. Yeah, that's true. I never thought of that, but yes.
And now it's like, okay, that's an electrical wire. And they're over the water. Let me plug it back in.
Right.
It's a little sadistic.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, she's getting tired of getting tied up.
Probably. They drop to the water, but they find a boat and start to make their way away. The thing is, the pie saucers have finally reached the barrier reef, crashes and explodes, and it churns up the water, which it was a nice touch, capsizing the boat.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. We get a wow moment at the end, though, at the expense of Batgirl, as they're heading back to port on the police boat with Simon and the money and all. And he says that he did hear from her. She had gone on to see a flower show, and he wished she was more physically active.
Yeah, wah. Yeah, that is a classic wah moment.
Yeah,
for Filmation.
Yeah, quite classic.
Yeah,
with the look on her face as they fade away.
Flower show.
Yeah. But you know what? Overall, you're right. I think it is a little better than the first one. Not that the first one was bad. The first one was really good. Really entertaining. Yeah.
I wasn't looking forward to watching these when we were doing, getting ready to do this. But again, it was the kind of thing where I watched them fresh and I hadn't seen them. The first one I'd seen a few times because it was one of our go-tos. Like I mentioned my son earlier, it's one of our go-tos just to sit around and, make jokes at the screen and what have you. That first one is definitely one of those. But I hadn't watched this one in a while, and it really holds up. I mean, they're both really good episodes. Simon the Pieman was a really good addition to the show and to Batman in general. And, it's one of those unfortunate things that he came along at a time and in a place that he's become more of a footnote in Batman history. But they definitely had something here.
Right. Now, we come to that one-parter that we were referring to earlier, the Christmas episode with Mr. Freeze. All right.
Go ahead. I really don't. I have never seen that episode before I watched it this time. Never seen it.
Right.
And I guess for whatever reason I skipped over it, and maybe they didn't show it on TV, or I certainly don't remember ever seeing it on TV, and I don't remember sitting down to watch it on video for whatever reason. So when I watched it completely fresh. And well, I guess give us the setup.
Okay. Well, the story's called Cool, Cruel Christmas Caper, written by Bob Haney.
The great Bob Haney. Zany Bob Haney.
Well, he goes all out zany in this one.
Oh yeah, if there's someone to do a Batman and Robin Christmas story on Filmation, Bob Haney's the one you want to have. All due respect to Dennis Marks and Oscar Bensall and the others who've been doing these episodes, Bob Haney is the right pick to do this episode.
Yeah.
It's the joyous annual Gotham City Christmas Parade, as children from 6 to 60 enjoy the fabulous floats, including the famed Batmobile and its equally famed occupants, Batman and Robin.
Santa.
Yeah, a weird-looking float, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't figure out why the float looked like it did, but I guess they just wanted to have this ornate float. But it's a really strange juxtaposition of the Batmobile on this thing.
Right. Like, they didn't make any attempt to make the float more Batman-like.
No, it's just this powder blue thing. It actually looks like crashing waves. It looked like they were riding the surf. It was very weird. Yeah.
And, of course, the star of the show, Jolly Santa Claus.
Ho, ho, ho!
But wait, is this really Santa Claus?
We're all set, Mr. Freeze.
Excellent, I say. We are about to pull the most magnificent caper of my cool career. Ho, ho, ho!
Now at City Hall Plaza, the commissioner is about to light the big Christmas tree.
Look at that priceless diamond star, Robin. When it's lit, Gotham's Christmas officially begins.
I can hardly wait, Batman.
Suddenly, the felonious felon creates a super frost.
Ho, ho, ho! Now, Dasher and Dancer, Prancer and Vixen, away!
Moments later, as Freeze's frost thaws.
Holy icicles, Batman! It was Mr. Freeze, and he's got the diamond star.
Let's go, Robin.
Things that jumped out at me in this one were that Mr. Freeze says "ho ho ho" as Santa Claus, exactly like the Santa Claus from the movie A Christmas Story.
Yes.
Ho ho ho. You know, it's this like vaguely drunken and sinister version of Santa Claus. You know, it's bad Santa before there was bad Santa. Ho ho ho. But I also imagine, you know, that this episode, when kids saw it, because the timing does work. I mean, I guess it probably ran. We've kind of debated the actual dates that these things first ran.
Right.
But I think this probably did run in December of '68. I guess.
So. Yeah.
So it definitely. I mean, it is a total full-on Christmas episode, and I can imagine that you're a young kid watching this, that the idea of Mr. Freeze stealing the star at the top of the tree and actually like freezing the tree and doing all of this would really seem like a big deal. You know, that would be, you know, Mr. Freeze is talk about the war on Christmas. You know, you Mr. Freeze. I imagine the kids would really be like, "Wait, what's going on here? Mr. Freeze is attacking Christmas. That's not right." So it's a perfect setup.
Right. Yeah. Now they go after him in the Batmobile, but Freeze freezes the road and the front of the Batmobile, so they need to find something else. And wouldn't you know it, by coincidence, somebody left their sled and team of Huskies on the side of the road.
That is so weird.
Yes.
Because it's never really explained. You just kind of like, wait, what just happened? Where did these? And you know, presumably it's because of the parade. You know, that they were there for the parade. That's the only explanation, that there would be a dog sled in the middle of Gotham City. It had to have been that they were left there, or they were there because of their something to do with the parade, because it is so strange. And again, because it's Bob Haney, he doesn't really explain it. It just is.
Right. Well, you've only got like 8 minutes anyway, so.
Yeah, right, exactly. Who needs an explanation when you just want to get to the action?
Right. Well, but I do like your explanation. That makes sense. But then how do you explain the next thing? That Freeze has hot dogs on him that he throws to distract the dogs.
Well, hold on. It's not just hot dogs. It's candy hot dogs. So, again, we are really getting into Bob Haney territory here, because he reaches into his bag. He says, I've got I'll do it in the Mr. Freeze. I've got candy hot dogs. And I actually had to run it back, and I said, did he actually say candy hot dogs? And he does. He says candy hot dogs. So I'm thinking, well, wouldn't dogs actually want real hot dogs?
Right.
B, why do you have candy hot dogs in your sack? And C, why do the dogs eat the candy? I mean, the Huskies eat the candy hot dogs. They actually go for it. And they're crunching away. They're going, you could hear the sound effect. And Batman and Robin are like, well, I guess they like the candy hot dogs more than they like mush, because it stops the dogs. And I'm thinking, this makes no sense on any level. This is, I mean, I guess maybe they're thinking that because they look like hot dogs, the dogs would want to eat them. But they look like hot dogs in a bun with like mustard and relish or whatever. It is so strange that I actually had to run it back. I'm like, am I seeing this right? But yeah, sure enough, Bob Haney and his candy hot dogs.
Christmas just won't be Christmas without the Diamond Star. You'll just have to get it back, dynamic duo.
We won't let the kids of Gotham down. Right, Robin?
Right.
Let's go.
Mr. Freeze is stealing Christmas, and what are we going to do?
I just wish Linus from the Peanuts had walked in and explained to him what Christmas was all about.
I mean, that's the thing. Is like I just wished. What if this were a two-parter? This would have been so much fun because it could have been the Batman Filmation Christmas special. It's just an 7-minute, one-parter, but it's got great kitschy 1960s Christmas elements going for it.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Now, it won't be easy to find Freeze in Gotham City because the town is currently filled with Santas who are doing all sorts of things, including collecting money for charity.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
But then you switch to Stacy's department store.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Stacy's, I love it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good touch because Macy's and Christmas, Thanksgiving, and all
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. And it's the windows. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like they're going right for it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And Batman and Robin catch Freeze just outside the store, but he freezes them both before going in and stealing the golden tree in one of the window displays.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And he gets away again. As we cut back to headquarters again. And this time, I love the snow falling.
Yeah.
I thought that was just so nice.
Yeah. Do we get to the point where the little kid walks up to the sidewalk Santa and it's really Mr. Freeze? Have we gotten to that point yet?
That was just at Stacy's there. He goes up to Freeze just before Freeze attacks the store.
It's so strange because the kid walks up to him and goes, Santa, I want to, and then he goes, brrr. And then it cuts away. And it's like, what? I didn't. That was so weird, and it was such a strange thing for them to insert. Again, I'm watching this, and I watched it last night, and it was like this is the most unhinged Christmas episode of anything I've ever seen. It is so weird, and I love it for it. This is Bob Haney, and I've mentioned Bob Haney before, but if you're just listening to this episode, Bob Haney was well known in the 60s and 70s specifically for doing comic books where it was just about the story in front of him, and he didn't care about continuity, and he would introduce things, and he would make mistakes about characters, and he would just have these outlandish ideas. But even though they were really wacky, they were really entertaining, and they were entertaining because they were wacky. But his runs on Brave and the Bold and the Teen Titans were legendary for this sort of thing. So that he got to do some of these Filmation episodes is like a gift.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because, I like the snow. But then when you go inside and there's Gordon again going on about Christmas, now it's really doomed because the tree, the star. But look out his window, there's no snow falling.
Right, no, of course not. It's, they were never consistent when it came to stuff like that. But yeah, in this one also, Gordon is in full-on Neil Hamilton despair mode.
Yes.
This is terrible. Not only is the Diamond Star in Freeze's cold clutches, but now he has the golden tree as well.
Gosh, this is really gonna be Gotham's gloomiest Yuletide.
Yes. Unless Mr. Freeze likes gingerbread.
What can Batman have in mind for Mr. Freeze?
This is he's so fatalistic. He's so like, oh, woe is us. Whatever will we do? It's no, he's definitely in his swoon.
Yes, yeah. But Batman comes up with a plan. He wants the news to promote the fact that there is a silver and gold bell atop a gingerbread house that they're going to be unveiling. Freeze goes and takes the bait, and he goes off and he steals it, ripping it right from the house, the whole bell tower, by using a helicopter, not realizing at first that Batman and Robin are hanging on inside the bell house.
Right. I also like how, and this is a theme, they did this in the comics all the time, and they did this on the TV show, the 66 TV show, and they've done it in Filmation, how often Batman would manipulate the media to his own end.
Yes.
You know, this is a thing with him, that he must have had great relationships with the editors of the Gotham City fill in the blank, whether it was the Gazette or the, you know, whatever, the Gotham City Times, the Gotham City News, the Gotham City Chronicle, whatever newspaper name that they would use at a given time. You know, it's just his ability to plant fake stories to catch criminals is, I mean, that's an underrated Bat power.
Right. Yeah.
Hashtag Bat News.
Bat News. Yeah. Now, Freeze does spot the two swinging below the copter, and he pulls out his ice ray and starts firing. The problem is he keeps missing, and he creates ice along the tower and on the copter, and it weighs the whole thing down, causing the copter to crash in the snow.
It's totally reckless.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching. He's just shooting indiscriminately.
Yep.
Which, okay, that's fitting, I guess. But it is like real. I mean, no wonder he brought his own helicopter down.
Yeah. Yeah. But in anger, he comes out, still firing the ray like crazy, and Batman and Robin run towards the city zoo, where they manage to get Freeze, like, because he's coming down this slide after them. Yeah. They lift the slide, and I guess there's enough momentum that he goes flying into the area where the polar bears are.
Right. You know what I like about this whole scene? First off, I like the matte paint, the effect that they show whenever they show anything being frozen.
Yes.
Particularly Batman and Robin. It's a really cool visual trick that they use. I don't know the technical terms for it, but they, you know, it looks really cool. It's like it's got this kind of white sketching over the figures, and it's particularly when they show it in matte, it looks really good. But this whole chase sequence I like because it reminds me. And I always like this anytime you would see this, whether it was on Batman or reading it in the comics or whatever, is it feels like you're watching kids playing in the backyard.
Yes.
Especially when they bust out the slide. And I kept thinking to myself, no wonder kids could relate to this. No wonder kids could understand this. Because basically particularly when they go to the zoo, it's like they're playing on a playground. And it's that joyfulness, that sense of fun, is what really makes these things work beyond everything else we've talked about, is that these things are fun, and it's fun to watch them. And it's fun to watch Batman sitting at the top of a slide. You know, for all of the memes that there are for the Spider-Man cartoons, the idea of Batman just sitting there waiting to go down the slide, I feel like it should be a meme. Because it's so cute. It's like, here's Batman. He's like, come on, Robin, let's go down the slide. You know, while they wait for Mr. Freeze to show up, and then they're like, all right, let's upend the slide. And then, of course, Mr. Freeze goes firing off into the polar bear, and the polar bear is very angry, as you know, he would be.
As he would be, and he knocks, you know, Freeze out of the
zoo.
Out of the zoo, right?
That is one super-powered bear.
Yes.
I mean, he doesn't just slash him and maul him to death or anything. He just whacks him, and he goes flying.
Yeah. Which, of course, then allows Batman and Robin to capture him with ease. And we, of course, get, because it's Christmas, Freeze saying humbug.
Yeah, I was watching it again with my son, and we had a bet going, even though it was a $0 bet, on whether or not Batman and Robin would. I said the final image is going to be Batman or Robin in a Santa hat. And that didn't happen. I'm like, that was a missed opportunity. But again, of course, what they did instead is they have Mr. Freeze going, bah, humbug.
Yeah.
You know, lying there in the snow, which was okay.
Now, here's the thing. Overall, this is a really goofy episode.
Oh, it's really silly.
Yeah.
It is really silly. Also, when Mr. Freeze is by himself, he's still doing the ho, ho, ho bit.
Yes.
You know? He never lets go of that, even though he's by himself and he's not in the Santa outfit. He's still going ho ho ho. The whole thing from beginning to end is just silly.
Yeah,
it is Filmation logic up the wazoo. It's preposterous. The basic thefts themselves all make sense. It's keeping in the theme of the Christmas episode. It's stuff that you could have seen them do on the 66 show or in the comics of the time. But it's everything surrounding it is bizarre. And again, it's one of those cases where the 7 to 8 minute episode part of it means that they have to cut out a lot of the logic just to get from one place to the next place to the next place. But it's wildly entertaining. It's so much fun, and it's so much fun to make fun of, which is part of what Filmation's all about.
Well, like you say, 7 to 8 minutes, yeah. But part of it also is, do you ever watch Doctor Who?
No, I'm not a big Doctor Who fan, only because I kind of don't know where to start, and I have a hard time making that commitment.
Right.
So I kind of feel like that's just one of those things that passed me by.
Right. But
anyway.
Well, every year since the show has picked up back in 2005, they've done a Christmas special. And
well, that's actually a British thing.
Right.
British shows routinely have their Christmas episode. I mean, American shows do too, but they make them like big specials. Like even though like a show may be out of season there,
right,
they'll still have a Christmas special.
Right. Yeah, but they never did it with the old series. They didn't have any Christmas. This was something they were like. I know there are other shows that they do that with. But what's interesting is every time you go into the Christmas special, you always have to sort of check your reality at the door and understand. I mean, considering we're also talking about a show about a time traveler and all this,
right? But that's always But it's like, just let it go and have fun, because it's going to be off the wall bonkers for the next hour with craziness. And yes, here we're talking about Batman, where we've got Simon the Pieman, and we've got, all these other crazy things that happen, in the Filmation or in the 66 series or in the comic books. But this one goes on another vein, and it's another deep end. It's a different kind of thing. And it's like, just don't worry about like why the Huskies are there. Don't worry about the candy hot dogs. It's like, just go with it, because it's Christmas. Right. Exactly. You're not going to. You're not going to get War and Peace here. No. I mean, you weren't going to get War and Peace anyway, or do you want War and Peace? But it's there's the extra kick of it being a Christmas episode that really makes you just give yourself over to it. Right. I think the only thing that lets it down, and you said it, is because it's the 8 minutes. You wish that it's like, if you're going to go with this off the wall, this should have been a full length episode. Yeah, I mean, it's at the same time, it's like I'm kind of conflicted, because yes, it certainly feels like it could have been, because then it could have been more of like a standalone thing that they could have run on Christmas, or it could have taken on its own life as opposed to being a backup, But at the same time, you kind of watch the 6 or 7 minutes, and I'm kind of like, that's kind of all I want to see. It's like it kind of, it's like, I don't need more than this. This is kind of the perfect dosage for this kind of story. Right. But at the same time, you also wanted to have taken on. It's like I kind of think of this thing as almost like the lost Batman Christmas, because it's so obscure. Mm-hmm. And it's the Batman special we never got in 66. Right, exactly. Right, because they never did holidays on I don't think, did they? No. I mean, they've done them on Filmation. They did Valentine's Day too, but I don't think they ever did a holiday on Batman 66 of any kind. I don't think they ever addressed July 4th or Thanksgiving. I don't remember anything like that. Elections, that was the closest thing, was elections. The elections was like a full-length thing, but like there was the reference at the end of Ma Parker about Mother's Day, and there is the appearance of Andy Devine as Santa Claus in one of the episodes that aired towards Christmas, but that was it. Right. Yeah. But they never had like a Christmas episode or a Halloween episode or any of that stuff. No. But okay, now I'm gonna make one more statement, dare I say it, because we've talked about how Mr. Freeze here, most of the time, he's just basically a thug. He's not given the same finesse that they gave, even though it was different variations. He had finesse in all three versions in the 66 series. He's more like a thug here, so we kind of are always a little disappointed with him. But I'm going to say this. This is his best story, I think, to date. To date. Let's just leave it at that. To date. Up to this point in our watching, yes. Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's also because it's more fun. I mean, Mr. Freeze has always been a favorite of mine. Right. He's always been a favorite. I always liked his stories. I like reading his stories. I really enjoy him. I don't consider him an A-list villain when you compare him to, say, the Big Four. Right. But I consider him a B-plus. He's right in the mix. And I think that they did a really – I always thought that it was a smart thing for the Filmation people to make him so prominent, because he's far more prominent on this show than he was on the 66 show.
Yes.
And I like that they did that. And I think it's also because his powers lend themselves to things that kids can relate to and play. I mean, what's one of the favorite kids games that I don't even know if the kids today, I don't know if they play it anymore in school or whatever, but red light, green light.
Right.
And freeze tag and stuff like that. And I don't know if the writers were at all thinking about this sort of stuff. I tend to doubt it, but who knows? But I remember as a kid, that was a thing, see how long you could stand without moving. And when I played with my Megos, even though there was no Mr. Freeze Mego, I would, jury rig something together. And Mr. Freeze was always a great villain to have. He was a good power. He had a good power set with that freeze gun. It was, and the thing about, so I always like the fact that they have Mr. Freeze on Filmation, but I've never been really that crazy about the way they show him. But this is definitely a really good episode. For what it is, it's wacky, it's crazy, but that's exactly why it works.
Right. So, whether you're watching or listening to this in July or August, because we recorded this in mid-July. Or
Christmas in July.
Yes, Christmas in July. Yeah. Or whether you actually listen to this around the holidays just for the fun, let me say from Dan and I here, Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas. Yes, Merry Christmas.
So as we come to the end of this episode, Dan, what's happening over at 13th Dimension?
Well, the same as always. We writing about comic books and Batman, and a lot of Batman, and even more Batman, both of the 66 and the modern day variety, plus other eras as well. In fact, I got to tell you, if you haven't visited 13th Dimension in a while, and I won't hold it against you, but something that we've been doing is there is an anonymous collector who has amassed an incredible array of original Batman 66 props and costumes. And we've been showing them off at 13th Dimension. So I mentioned this here because for your listeners, in case you haven't been up to speed on the website, go check it out, because we've had these really photo galleries of like original Robin costumes and other stuff. And this is going to be going on for months. So by all means, come pay us a visit and check it out, because I think you're going to like what you see.
Yes. And if you didn't get a chance to, head on over to 13th Dimension and check out Dan's piece on Simon the Pieman and who you think would make a great guest star if it was the 66 series.
Yes, exactly. And I won't spoil it, so you go read it.
Exactly, yeah. So, and you can find all that at 13thdimension.com.
Yep, and we're on Facebook and Twitter too, so check us out there.
Very cool. So, next time, Mr. Freeze is actually back, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this is his final turn on the Filmation 68 series.
Yep. Goes out on a high note.
He goes out on a high note, okay. It's a two-parter, as he stages another hoax, because he did a hoax thing a while ago with the Vikings. This time, though, ice meteors are falling on Gotham.
Yes. Run for your lives.
Yes. And we get Filmation's second and last original villain in The Judge in our next episode.
Yeah, we sure do.
So until next time, citizens, thank you so much for listening. Once again, Dan, everyone, take care.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening, chums. I don't have a bat phone, but you can contact the Batcave Podcast through its Facebook page, Twitter, email at thebatcavepodcast@gmail.com, subscribe to the podcast via libsyn.com, that's LIBSYN.com, or through iTunes. The Batcave Podcast is part of a series of pop culture podcasts from the Chronic Rift Network. Find them at chronicrift.com. So until next time, citizens, same bat time, same Batcave Podcast.
There's the Diamond Star. And the Golden Tree is back in Stacy's window, too.
Now Gotham City will have a happy holiday after all. Merry Christmas!
Bah! Humbug!